My voice a few times a day, and then I work a thread like I do a cocktail party. I respond to people as they come into onto my wall, so that they become a part of my world. They become a very important part of my world. They are now invested in
I have trouble though keeping up with that and actually writing.
Well, that's why you've got all these books, and I have one that took me 8 years.
Well, that's what I mean though. No, I mean, honey, I'm just gonna say, I think, you know, sometimes you have to spend more time on the actual writing because it's so hard to do both. It's fragmented.
But if you don't do both, the thing is that if you don't do the promotion part, if you don't do that social networking stuff, I can't tell you, of all the books that are on the floor over there, from all the people that have read here, none of them hit bestseller. And they all, and some of them went on The View and Oprah, and they did every show, and they did every tour, and they had all the money of the publishing houses behind them, and they still couldn't get a bestseller.
No, we have to do it, and here's why. Because now authors want, readers want to have personal relationships with authors. And they can reach us in a way they couldn't before.
Right.
When my first book came out in '94, people who were savvy enough had to write letters to my publisher, who would then forward them to me, which seems like the dark ages now. But they can email you from your website, they can reach you on Facebook, they can follow you on Twitter, and I think we're developing more loyal fan bases.
I think so.
Who we will carry from book to book. It's really important. But here's my, just 1 second and then I'll be quiet. My Michael J. Fox moment for the afternoon is that
he's my cousin-in-law, by the way.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. Nobody's gonna tell me. It used to be when and I've been doing this now for 16 years. It used to be that when you published a book, if you were lucky enough, the publisher would build the mountain for you. They would put you on the aerial tramway. They would carry you to the top where someone would be waiting to shout through a megaphone, buy this woman's book. And all you had to do was really smile and sign your copies, and you would sell your books. Now what it is you build the mountain yourself. You climb it, rock by rock by rock. You stand on the top, waving your arms, hello everybody, buy my book. And all around you are hundreds of other authors standing on top of the mountains that they've built themselves. Now, occasionally, there's Mount Everest, you know, with John Grisham at the top, where the publisher still takes him on the tramway. But even that's becoming increasingly less common. And this is just what we have to do. But you're standing on the mountain, you're shouting, buy my book, and then this lone email comes in your box, and you read it on your BlackBerry. And it's from a reader who tells you that your book just changed their lives. And you think it is worth it to be here. It is worth it to be here. And that's why we keep doing it. Besides the fact that, you know, we can't sing, dance, or numbers.
And it's true. I mean, the thing that is so amazing with my first book, and it's really hard. My first book, one of the ways I got stories was from my position on NPR. People wrote me stories. I put them in my book. Those people became my friends. It was really amazing. People wrote to me on my website, but then I had to get my webmaster to send me the email. It was this crazy, like antediluvian process. Now I go on Facebook, and there are women all over the country who have written to me to say thank you because their kids are born with birth defects. And there was one woman who wrote me this letter. She said, I leave this in NICUs. I leave your book in NICUs. And I just like, oh my God, it's extraordinary to be able to do this. I write them. I mean, you know, it is amazing. It's just, I worry, you know, like I have a lot of trouble. I'm trying to think now of like doing things like only answer emails between this hour and this hour. You know what I mean? Like I think it might be important to be more disciplined about it because our friend Craig Bierko is one of the most talented writers I know. Doesn't sit down and write. He writes funny Facebook entries.
And you know what else he did? He came to read for us, and he wrote it the night before. That's what he did. He wrote it the night before. It was brilliant, but
I just think, you know, sometimes it's a danger.
What about,
it is a danger.
Because it seems like there's a market there for somebody to delegate this to. You know, say, I'm a writer, that's what I do. And finding people that are really good at doing the Facebook thing who can get to know you.
And you have to also have a certain, I mean, there are people.
You have to find the right person for you.
We know people who, the thing is, I know people, Ben Stiller does not tweet himself.
Right.
He's got a tweeter, he's got a Facebook person. I mean, so people with a certain, you know, mandates.
But the
stuff,
only thing is,
that's a different-
I know who those people are who aren't doing it themselves, and I don't spend any time with, I don't deal with them.
The thing
I won't even
about-
ask them to
yeah.
come and read. If they're not, if it's not really them,
Right.
I'm not interested. And
But
people
what
out
if
there
they
can tell the
have
difference
kids,
too.
Or they've got, you know, other things, or they need time to be writing. I mean, you know, there has to be some room for, you know, I understand this is publicity and I need to sell myself, but that's not me. I need to concentrate on the work, and I need to maybe respond to the people who send the
And you know
thing,
what
because
you're
you can't-
speaking to is that
you
this
can't
is
do it.
this is an unsustainable situation.
Yes.
Because the authors, we don't have MFAs and MBAs concurrently. And what's happening now is that we're going, either we're going to go in a direction where the only people who can get published are the people who can market themselves, which would be a shame, because that would take away a lot of really talented authors. Or we're going to see these companies start coming up, and they are. Author PR firms and social networking firms that specialize in authors. But right now, the authors still have to pay for it themselves.
Right.
It's only when it starts coming through the publishing companies or the publishers start paying for it that it's really going to work, I think, for the authors.
Right.
And that may happen. I think we're in a state of evolution right now. I feel like I just need to go to sleep for a couple of years, and
Like,
when
when
I
did
wake
the
up, it'll be
publishers
different.
stop paying for that stuff? It's
No,
crazy.
Within the past 2 years.
Past 2 years, but
Yeah.
from my first book
Between the
to
time,
this next
yes,
book,
between
it
the time I sold my book and my book came out,
Unbelievable.
exactly during that period.
It's
Well,
just,
music-
it just changed so entirely.
Well, so I guess my question would be then, why even bother with a publisher? Because with music,
Exactly.
for example,
Oh,
I
yeah.
have distribution through a company, but they just put it in. That means it's available at Amazon, all those kind of places.
Right.
But no one buys it there unless I've done particular marketing in that area,
You
or
know,
whatever. So the way that I've also hired my own publicist, hired a radio promoter, done all that kind of stuff. Now I'm making a living doing it. It's not a very luxurious living, but
Right.
I'm really grateful for.
I'll tell you why you don't necessarily want to do it yourself, although you certainly can.
Well, no, you don't
The
really
reason,
ever want to.
you know, why I don't, for instance. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, and why there's a certain old model, and even in music, it is sad to see this disappear. For better or for worse, and for many cases it came out worse. When you look at the old-fashioned way that a band would be signed, that band would get to benefit from the very successful, let's say, other bands that give me the name of the company. Motown had already produced. And so, of course, there'd be all kinds of levels of graft and all kinds of waste at the top, and people didn't get all the money they were due. But the one good thing was you were signing on with a company that could invest money into you, and without a publisher to give you an advance to actually write the book or and editing, other eyes. I mean, it is really tough. You can't afford to actually write. That is the tough
And
part.
so, like now, I'm in this position where I'm trying to figure out which way to go. Like I got a publishing contract from a very small publisher. Doesn't believe in advances, but he'll send me all over the world. He'll put me on all the radio stations. He'll do all this great stuff, but he doesn't have any cred, right? It's a very small house, only done a few books. My agent wants to shop it big to the big houses, to the smaller boutique labels, because then I'll get the advance, right? I've got all these celebrities, they're going to write blurbs, yeah, you can get an advance, but they're not going to send me, they're going to send me out for 5 minutes.
It's a trade-off. The problem is,
yeah.
can you afford to write without getting an advance? And that is really hard to do because that's how it becomes your profession. And so what we're seeing, I mean, there's a really great book out called Age of the Amateur, is that this whole, right now, people making money are people that have distribution streams, are the distributors, are the delivery systems, people who make content. Musicians, writers, actors and performers are not sharing in the revenue that people who make the delivery streams get. And so it is just a really tough moment, and hopefully that will change. Because otherwise, everyone has to be an amateur because no one can afford you can do that when you're really young, like Kat. But if you want to have a family, it can be much harder. Except for Prince, he's been just doing it on his own now. I never understood that actually the reason why he had that tattooed on his head for a long time. Yes, thank you. The thing about the artist formerly known as Prince was because he didn't own that name. I didn't actually realize it was all to do really with copyrights and why he was writing, and that was that he couldn't promote himself under that name. So, but of course, he already had millions and millions of dollars with which to then promote himself under whatever name he wanted to use. It was, I think it was Numbers for a little while, right?
Yes, it was a
So
symbol.
it's a turning point, and I mean, I think for, I don't want to speak for myself, but for people who make work like